Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And spring training 2032 begins today. The regular season just about 4.5, 5 weeks away as our Rockies will try to defend our 2031 World Series championship, the first in Colorado Rockies franchise history. We got a nice bump in our budget following the championship last season, and then another nice bump in our budget when the preseason began. So we're closing in on being a middle of the pack team in terms of our budget and player payroll. $250 million budget this year. Right now the payroll stands at $184 million, although that will probably change a little bit when we don't have 60 players in spring training and we go down to a 26-man roster, as we will in a few weeks. Couple key goals for this upcoming season. Ownership wants us to reach the playoffs, wants us to increase fan interest by the end of this year, which we have finally done a decent job at recently with some great play on the field primarily that resulted ultimately in the championship last year. They also want us to upgrade at center field. Honestly, the easiest way to do that may be just to play the young outfielder Kevin Roberts as our everyday center fielder, which is certainly a possibility depending on how guys like Dean West and Brendan Tunick end up playing in spring training. Big day tomorrow when we'll find out what happened with the long development lab programs we started right at the start of the off season. Looks like we could conceivably have 5 of the programs be successful, although one is very borderline. And also some pretty important players to our organization who seem poised to have successful results. So hopefully after we play this first game against Milwaukee today, we'll get some good news about how the development lab went, and then we'll start resetting the development lab for our defensive focused programs over the next 4.5, 5 weeks. And it looks like we ended up having an even better run than we expected. Ended up with 6 successful programs overall, 4 of which were successful, 2 of which were outstanding. So a 75% success rate, given especially that these were the longer programs and we had some pretty difficult programs in there, is an outstanding result that I'm really happy with. The 2 guys where unfortunately we didn't have any improvement. Isaiah Shader was working on his secondary pitch improvement, a guy who's become one of the top pitchers in our rotation the last couple of years. And Mike Gerard, the young catcher who has plenty of defensive skills. We were working on a generate bat speed program for him. No success there. He is a guy who, at 21 years old, particularly if he had been successful, is perhaps not too far off being able to compete for a spot on our major league roster. Likely would be the backup to Drew Romo for the foreseeable future, but with Romo getting a bit older, near the end of his contract, and also relatively expensive, and presumably expensive to re-sign in a couple of years, Gerard's development's going to be critical to us. So a little bit of a bummer that he didn't make any big strides with bat speed. But overall, 6 out of 8 programs successful or outstanding. We're not going to complain about. Jose Ramirez, an international amateur free agent who we signed a few years ago, successful program improving his control, although the magnitude of the control improvement was not big, at less than 5 points. The 19-year-old definitely struggled in the Arizona League, did better in the DSL for us, making his professional debut at those 2 levels of rookie baseball last year. Hopefully he'll be able to take a step forward this season. Outstanding result for Ted Miller in his Generate Bat Speed program. Current power rating improved by a little less than 5, and his potential power rating improved by 5 points. Miller is definitely a guy, second round pick back in 2027, who is pushing hard to make us put him on the roster. We're so deep at outfield, first base, DH that you can certainly make an argument that even with the pretty strong batting ratings that he shows, might not make the team. But if we're willing to perhaps sacrifice a little bit of defense, his bat is certainly very interesting and definitely looks ready to handle right-handed pitching at the major league level. Result that I'm really excited about, Derby Mahez, our first-round pick from a couple years ago. Outstanding result in gap power, although only 5-point improvements in both potential and current. So not off the charts for an outstanding development, but we'll take it. Mahez, another guy who we think is getting close to the majors. Hit 295 in 61 at-bats in Double-A last year. The 23-year-old probably starts this year in Double-A. Would assume after a couple of months he'll be up in Triple-A and could certainly be in contention to be a September call-up. Love his personality, like the speed. His defense has developed really well for us since we drafted him. Drafted him thinking he could only play third base. That's a position where we think he can be a Gold Glove caliber player, but certainly has a profile that he could play second or short for us down the line. How far his bat is going to develop has always been the big question. Looks like he could have a decent major league bat, which when you combine that with really good defense, really good speed, and a fantastic personality, is a pretty interesting player. Three other programs successful. Justin Gibson improved his control rating a little bit. 24-year-old, we think still has a lot of untapped potential. He has gotten off to a really good start in his career. I know some of you have asked me about signing him to an extension in comments to recent episodes. It is something that I've investigated on multiple occasions with him. He's always looking for very big money, soon to be 25 years old, tops 100 miles on the radar gun. Taking a look at what a contract extension would look like at this point for 6 years, and this is the highest number we've ever seen from him. Wants an average of over $15 million for 6 years with a peak value of $23 million. So as good as he is, probably not the type of commitment we're going to make at this point to a reliever with 25 stamina. Real excited about these last two. Leo Martinez and Kevin Roberts are two pivotal young players that we signed to long-term contracts. Martinez had some injury issues last year, and his injury proneness has improved from normal bordering on fragile to somewhat normal. So hopefully that will ultimately keep a guy who we think could have been a future ace for us with the signing of Noah Schultz this past offseason. Martinez is likely slotted in as our number 2 starter for the foreseeable future, but he was 9-4 with a 2.58 ERA, pitching 18 games at the major league level, 23 games overall last year. Hopefully with a little bit of improvement in his health, he'll be able to have a regular workload for us every 5th day this year. And last but not least, successful result for the young outfielder Kevin Roberts Jr. And that, to me, appears to be more of an outstanding result. I think that is the best result I've ever gotten in the development lab. I remember getting 10 points of improvement on multiple occasions. I know I've gotten 15 points of improvement at least once, possibly twice before. I do not ever remember a 20-point improvement, and I don't know how high the improvement would have needed to be for it to be viewed as outstanding. I guess that's like a 40-point improvement in the way that this one went through, but current power rating jumping by 20. Although Roberts was incredible in the playoffs for us last year, winning both the NLCS and World Series MVP, his rookie season was a bit disappointing with a 246 average, 18 homers, 94 WRC plus, but with a big step forward in power and contact, gap power, and eye that we all think are above average. Would think that Mr. Roberts could be a candidate for certainly becoming an all-star, possibly a silver slugger and or a gold glove, and if everything goes well, a MVP candidate this upcoming year, particularly with that great result. Would love to hear from the Worldwide Scouting Department as to what you've seen in your own playthroughs, but the 20-point improvement is the best that I've ever seen. And as I said, I think I've only seen 15 once or twice in previous years. One thing I will say, though, there could be some scouting issues involved in there, because I am pretty confident that Miller's power was not 40 a year ago. I'm pretty confident that we thought he was a 50 power guy. I guess I could look at the scouting and figure that out. Yeah, I mean, you look back at last summer, and we thought he was a 50 out of 80 in terms of his power. And so that looks more like a 10-point improvement to me. Maybe he went from being a 48 to a 62. But even if you did that with rounding, you'd call that 15 rather than 20. So excited he had a successful program, but I don't really see where they come up with that number of a 20-point improvement to his power rating. And we're going to focus primarily on defense with our defensive programs. Kevin Roberts Jr., after that great result in the development lab with his bat speed, going to work on his base stealing technique. Other than that, Ted Miller and Christian Arguelles going to work on outfield defense. Mike Gerard, one of our top prospects, going to work on his defense at catcher. And then infield defense, Derby Mahez, Ryan Stone, the pitcher Leo Martinez, and the veteran Colt Keith, who we brought over, going to work on his defense as well. He's likely our third baseman for this next year, but we do have him for up to 3 years with some team options. Looks like a competent defensive infielder now. Not sure how much success we're going to have with a 30-year-old, but we'll roll the dice and hope for the best. And in a really bad piece of news, Kevin Roberts Jr., strained back muscle, going to be out for 3 weeks. So that's certainly not ideal for his work in the development lab. Hopefully he'll be back in time for the last week and a half of spring training, so shouldn't impact his readiness for the season. But after we're feeling incredibly good about him after that big step forward with his power, stinks that we're not going to see him for the next 3 weeks. And our Rockies off to a fantastic start on the field in spring training with a 6-1 record. Brendan Tunick, the outfielder who, former Rule 5 pick, spent all of 2030 up with us once we had his rights split last year between AAA and the majors, but a ridiculous 1.357 OPS as he's fighting for a roster spot. Unfortunately, some really bad injury news. Braden Nett going to be out for 3 weeks with a strained oblique. He's fighting for a spot in the rotation this year. A guy who won 18 games for us just 2 years ago now finds himself with the depth of our pitching, with the trade we made for Mr. Jordan, the acquisition of Mr. Schultz as a free agent, and the development of Leo Martinez. Not guaranteed a spot in the rotation at this point, and certainly the injury won't help there. More significantly, Ian Miller, a prospect who had some injury issues last year that we thought would be fighting for a spot on our team this year, is unfortunately done for the year. Torn flexor tendon in his elbow. He gave up no hits and obviously no earned runs in 5 innings pitched for us late last season. So very disappointing that Mr. Miller is now down. and out for the year, unfortunately. He did have that surgery to remove a bone spur right at the end of last season. Also missed time with forearm soreness, back spasms last year as well. But looks like his right elbow is becoming a pretty significant issue, unfortunately, and is a right-handed pitcher who's now likely to be 27 years old before he gets another chance to pitch in the major leagues. Certainly not a great development for the former 8th-round draft pick. And for whatever wins in the spring are worth, things continue to go pretty well for our Rockies. 10-5-1 record now in the spring. Nobody right on the top of the leaderboards. Unfortunately, we're not having as good a trip through the development lab with the shorter programs as we did with the long ones. 4 frustrated players, Colt Keith, Christian Arguelles, and Ted Miller. I guess actually only 3 frustrated. Unfortunately, Kevin Roberts Jr. is really struggling, things going poorly with that allegedly easy base stealing technique program. Don't think the fact that he's been out all spring training with a strained back helps. Kind of a bummer that seems like there might be some penalties here for the fact that he's not really able to participate in the program since we assigned him to it. And then a day or two later, he got hurt. Looks like this program's taken a toll on his legs, so that's really disappointing after we were feeling so good about him after that power program. Again, particularly because this is supposed to be a pretty easy program. Derby Mahez on track, Leo Martinez excelling, Ryan Stone on track, and Matt Gerard, who's also an outstanding defensive catcher already, on track in his program. Maybe that'll result in some improvement in his arm, perhaps, which would be fantastic. But happy that 4 programs are moving in the right direction, although the success rate looks like it could definitely be down from the long programs. But very concerned about a guy, Kevin Roberts Jr., who we think is a 5-tool player, perhaps taking a step back with some of his ability on the base paths if he doesn't hopefully get healthy and then get a little luckier going forward. You can see he just hasn't been able to do anything. I think the injury plays a big part in that, bar not being really filled up. If we cancel it right now, though, he's likely going to have some form of regression, and there's no point in starting another program since there's not any time to finish it. So I guess we just wait and hope with Kevin Roberts Jr. over these last couple weeks of spring training. And the injuries in this spring keep coming. Another starting pitcher, Isaiah Shader, elbow strain for 2 weeks, so we're going to definitely shut him down for the rest of the spring. Hopefully he'll be just about ready when the season begins, but felt like we had 7 potential starters when spring training began, between Shader, Schultz, Painter, Martinez, Jordan, Net, and Miller. Miller already done for the year, and Net and Shader dealing with injuries already. So like they say, you can never have too much pitching. Roberts still an uncertain return date, so struggling to get him any playing time at all. Probably not helping his ability to build up his base stealing technique. And as we head into the final days of spring training, much more significant injury. Ezekiel Tovar, fractured foot, going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. We've mentioned in this episode, I think, and certainly in previous episodes, that the infield not as deep as it's been in previous seasons, particularly in the middle at second base and shortstop. And the loss of our starting shortstop for the beginning of the season is certainly not optimal. Supposedly Tovar is still normal in terms of his injury proneness. He's just beginning the first year of a 5-year extension that we signed him to a little over a year ago. So the fact that his health continues to appear to be an issue is certainly not optimal. And spring training is now finished, a 15-11-2 record for the Rockies, so tied with the Padres for the best record in the NL West for whatever that's worth, but certainly slowed down a bit after a pretty strong start to the spring training. Kevin Canty, 24 strikeouts, the 22-year-old 20th round pick back in 2027, guy who did have some pretty good success going a combined 10-3 last year at A and high A ball. Definitely worry about his control, but as a soon-to-be 23-year-old was a guy who was in camp with us and ended up in a lot of opportunities, third in the league in strikeouts, at least during spring training. And we've simmed ahead a couple days to the start of the regular season, made decisions on the 26-man roster, which we'll be talking about shortly. As we were thinking about the way this offseason was going, obviously extremely pleased to add guys like Noah Schultz and Colt Keith into the mix. But we felt that our middle infielders and ultimately the back end of our pitching staff, particularly the bullpen, were going to be potential areas of concern. And unfortunately, those are also the areas where we've suffered injuries this spring training, making the areas that were potential weaknesses even weaker, at least for the near term. Our excellent shortstop, Ezekiel Tovar, fractured his foot a couple of weeks ago. He's going to miss the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season. Marcelo Meyer will pivot over to short, where he's not as good defensively as Tovar is. And then we'll have people moving to second base who aren't as good defensively as Meyer. So we lose a very important right-handed bat in the lineup that gives us somewhat better balance, particularly against left-handed pitching, and also a very important middle infielder for our pitching staff, but hopefully that won't be a long-term injury. We also lost a guy who is definitely going to be a middle or long reliever for us in Ian Miller, and he was one of our insurance policies if we had a bunch of starting pitching injuries. Unfortunately, he tore a flexor tendon in his elbow and is going to be out for 8 months. So the 26-year-old, who was really good when he finally made his major league debut last year, is going to miss this entire season. And we're being careful right now with another starter, Isaiah Shader. He hurt himself about 2 weeks ago at this point. We haven't pinched him since then. Given that his recovery time is unknown at this point, we decided a couple of days ago to put him on the IL, which we were able to backdate retroactively since he hadn't been pitching by, I think, 2 or 3 days. So he's only got 10 days left on the IL. If he recovers earlier than those 10 days, he may miss a start or two, but would rather be careful, particularly with the fact that we've already lost Miller for the entire season as a guy who could start for us. So what that ultimately means is that our starting rotation is fine, even without Shader. We did add in some redundancy, but some new names, most notably Noah Schultz, who we signed to that 6-year, $270 million contract. The 2-time Cy Young Award winner is immediately our ace. Leo Martinez, last year's outstanding rookie, had some good luck with him in the strength and conditioning program that finished up right at the start of spring training, will be our number 2 starter. New addition Dylan Jordan, who we traded for in the offseason, will be our 3rd starter. Andrew Painter, number 4, and then Braden Nett, number 5. Nett also had some injury issues during spring training, so he hasn't pitched a ton. In a perfect world, we'd love to be able to stretch him out a little bit as a middle or long reliever for us and then put him into the rotation if we had some injury issues. But with the fact that we're being cautious with Shader, that does ensure that Nett, who was an 18-game winner for us 2 years ago, at least starts the year and gets a shot in the rotation. The late inning part of the bullpen is pretty familiar and pretty solid. Wellington Herrera back as our closer. Drew Summers, Luke Little, and Justin Gibson back as setup men. Summers and Little, the lefties, can serve as lefty specialists. Gibson serves as our stopper at times, and he pitched a lot last year, 92 and 2/3 innings out of the bullpen. But the middle and long relievers, given the injuries that we talked about to Shader and Miller, and just the fact that we moved on from a lot of pitchers this past off season, have some new names and some unproven names. I think that as the season moves on, adding some help to the bullpen may be the most obvious need that we have, but we're going to give some new names a chance this time around. Ryan Featherston, probably the most experienced of this crew. He had a 4.26 ERA in 19 innings for us a year ago. See what the 27-year-old can do as a middle reliever for us this year. Dave Seibrecht, Rule 5 acquisition. He is going to be at 22 years old, making the jump from only 3 games above rookie ball all the way to the major leagues. Can't say we think he's completely ready for this huge jump, but he is a talented player, particularly in terms of his potential, can reach the high 90s in velocity. We'll give him a chance. If we have to send him back to the Angels at some point because of ineffectiveness, we will do that. He's also fragile in terms of his injury proneness, so who knows how long we'll have him out there, but we're going to give him a chance. Bill Douglas, who was up right at the end of last year, 6.75 ERA in 4 innings, a guy we picked up in that trade with the Mets a couple years ago at this point. Looks like he could certainly be a solid contributor in the bullpen for us. Another guy who reaches the high 90s out of that sidearm arm slot. Don't expect him to be awesome, but think he can hopefully hold his own as a middle reliever. The last guy who made the team is a bit of a surprise. We definitely have some 4A veteran-type guys in their 30s in AAA that look better than him, but this is a guy we used some draft capital on a few years ago, and we're going to give him a chance to see what he can do. Second-round pick in 2028 out of St. Peter's University. James Embry hasn't completely developed the way that we would have hoped, and his stamina certainly not what we would have hoped either. Hasn't been good the last season and a half in terms of his performance in Albuquerque. Actually, he was really good in a small sample size, half a season or less than half a season in 2030. But last year he had a 9 ERA in 12 starts and some injury issues. But we do, some extent, excuse big ERAs pitching in Albuquerque and pitching in the PCL. Don't think Embry is ultimately the answer for us. Probably the first guy who will be gone if and when Shader is finally healthy. But we'll see what the Rule 5 pick Seibrecht and the former second-round draft choice James Embry can do this year. We do potentially have some interesting help on the way. You may remember that last year Kumar Rocker was on our team, and he did a really nice job for us as a 5th starter, 10-5 record with a 4.25 ERA. He was looking for, I believe, around $11 or $12 million in many years, I think 4 years when the offseason started. Has not gotten an offer to his suiting yet. It does look like his stuff and his movement are regressing a bit as he heads towards his mid-30s. Even just a few days ago, he was looking for $4.8 million. We actually offered him $2.5 million, and he said no. But with the season opening today and him still having no job, he came back to us, said that he's willing to at least think about a minor league contract. So we've made that offer to Rocker. And if we bring him on board, and if, in particular, Embry ends up being ineffective, Rocker could be back with us as a long reliever, mop-up guy, emergency starter type in the majors in the not-too-distant future. Certainly, if Shader gets healthy, that lets us likely move Net to the bullpen, which strengthens everything out there, but still feel that this is an area where probably going to be looking for a little of help as the season moves along. As long as the rotation is generally healthy, we think that it's easily the best rotation we've ever had. So I think the help that we would be most likely looking for would be in the bullpen. So we'll turn to the position players next, and in part due to the injury that we talked about already to Tovar, and in part just due to the outstanding depth we have in the outfield, some definite surprises in terms of the final cuts. 5 guys to note. The 5 final cuts were a couple of Rule 5 acquisitions, the outfielder Pedro Sanchez and the infielder Angel Carmona did not end up making the team. But among more familiar names, Cole Carrig for a second straight year doesn't make the team out of spring training, despite being a fan favorite and a super utility type. The bat last year wasn't good, and felt like there were better options, but if we have some injuries, he'll likely be back. Brendan Tunick for the second straight year, former Rule 5 pick who still has options, one of the final cuts. And then the one that was probably most surprising, Christian Arguelles, rookie last year who was our left fielder against right-handed pitching, had a very nice season for us. I think like a 112-ish OPS plus on the year, hit close to 300 for most of the year, although he tailed off a little bit at the end. Solid defensive player, had a nice rookie season for us, but he got caught up in a numbers game. No surprise that Drew Romo is back as our catcher, and with the fact that we traded away our backup catcher, Mr. Flores, from last year, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked that Chris Boone is our backup this year. No concerns about him defensively, but very significant concerns about his bat. He did somehow hit 308 in Albuquerque last year, but in the high offense PCL, that was still a slightly below average offensive season for him, despite hitting 308 with a 371 on-base percentage, 20 doubles, 13 homers, an OPS of close to 850. And that kind of shows right there why we don't necessarily downgrade guys who are pitchers who put up unpleasant numbers in the PCL. Ultimately, Boone is probably not our long-term answer as a backup catcher because of his offensive limitations, but we have a highly regarded catcher coming up through the organization who may be timed perfectly. We've got Drew Romo signed at this point for the next 3 seasons, although 2042 is a team option, and that could work pretty well with the development of Mr. Girard, who we'll be talking about shortly when we also review what happened in the latest trip to the development lab. First base platoon, Matt McElroy, who we traded for from the Nationals at the beginning of the offseason, makes the team. Was a below-average offensive player for them a year ago, but is a right-handed hitter against left-handed pitching. Think that he can knock some balls out of the park for us and be a very nice complement to the outstanding youngster from a year ago, Ryan Stone, who put up a 129 WRC plus and a 3.2 WAR for us at first base. Stone has severe lefty versus righty splits, so he'll be our everyday first baseman against right-handed pitching. When we happen to face a lefty, McElroy will be in there. Gavin Lux is going to be our second baseman against right-handed pitching. We picked him up in a trade just about 2 months ago, knowing that we were going to need some infield depth. Viewed him as a pure utility infielder for us, behind Meyer at second base and Tovar at shortstop. But with the injury to Tovar at shortstop, Lux is going to be playing regularly for us for at least the next 2 or 3 weeks. A surprise name, and one that I don't know if we've ever talked before, Rosniel DePaula, who looks like a guy who was just at the very low levels of the Rockies organization when we took this over, probably was in the international complex even then, although I did not acquire him. Pretty versatile defensive player. Question the bat. He only played in high A ball in Double A a year ago, did hit 313 in the Eastern League for Double A Hartford. 25 dingers and a 145 WRC plus. DePaula, thanks to his solid defense and his versatility there as well, coupled with the injury to Tovar, makes the team out of spring training. When Tovar comes back, he's probably the most logical infielder to send down to ensure that we can get him, given that he's only 23 years old, very regular playing time in AAA. For the time being, he's going to be in a platoon at second base with Lux playing against left-handed pitching. New addition Colt Keith is going to be our everyday third baseman at this point. Has been an above-average offensive player over the course of his career, although last year when he turned 30, he had one of his weaker offensive seasons. But he will be third baseman for the time being. And Marcelo Meyer, with the injury to Tovar, back as our everyday shortstop. Hopefully, as I noted, when Meyer is back, Meyer goes to short. Or when Tovar is back, Tovar goes to short. Meyer moves to second. Lux goes into more of a utility infielder role, and we ultimately improve our offense and our defense and our depth. And as I said, DePaula probably the most likely to be sent down so he can play every day once we don't need his versatility at the major league level. Kevin Roberts Jr., not surprisingly, back. He will be playing left field against right-handed pitching, center field once again against left-handed pitching, expecting a big-time year from him. Dean West will be back as our center fielder against right-handed pitching. Trent Clausen going to play again. He'll be in the lineup against lefties as our left fielder. Ted Miller is the reason that Christian Arguelles and ultimately Brendan Tunick and even Cole Carrig, who can also play the outfield, didn't make the team. Miller, left-handed hitter, is going to be our DH against both righties and lefties. And Gus Nieves, of course, is back as our cleanup hitter. He'll play right field against right-handed pitching and left-handed pitching, given that although Nieves is not an incredible defensive player, neither is Ted Miller. So we'll give Nieves the opportunity to play a bit more often in the field than he did last year, although that's certainly subject to change. And we'll check in on the development lab results now. As we talked about in the last episode, Kevin Roberts Jr. missed most of spring training, got hurt right after we put him into the program. Been struggling with it the whole time, and he ended up having a poor result in that base stealing technique program. His injury proneness as far as his legs is now going to be normal, from normal bordering on durable. So over the years might have an extra injury or two for Roberts Jr., which is not great. Good news is, though, we mentioned that he had a 20-point bump in power when he went through the long programs, even though that was not viewed as an outstanding result. We didn't see it initially in his scouting report back at the start of spring training, but with our latest scouting reports on him, can definitely see that improvement that we think took place over the course of the offseason. So really good to see that, and bummed that he may be a little more injury prone, but would think that with the ratings that he is showing, Roberts Jr. looks like a true five-tool player, and the former 5th overall pick, we've got huge expectations for this year after he won the NLCS and World Series MVP awards as a 23-year-old last season. Ted Miller, no improvement in his defensive program, but he's there for his offense. As we noted, despite the nice year that Arguelles had for us a year ago, when we look at what we think Miller can do with the bat, he got the opportunity to make the team out of spring training this year. No improvement on infield defense from Colt Keith. No improvement on outfield defense from the recently demoted Christian Arguelles. but we did still end up with 4 successful or outstanding programs. Big one was Derby Ma has improved his infield defense, a little bit of improvement every year or every category. Mahez, when we drafted him, closing in on 2 years ago at this point, was a guy who we thought could be an outstanding third baseman, but didn't really think he necessarily was going to be able to play other infield positions at a high enough level. But for a second straight year, we've gotten a good result in a defensive program in the development lab for him. And if we decide we want to have Colt Keith as our third baseman for the next few seasons, Mahez certainly looks capable of taking over at second base or short. So the question with him is going to be how quick his bat develops and how far his bat develops. Only his 61 at-bats above high A ball. He did do well in them, but we're going to start him in Double A this year. Presumably we'll see him in the majors before the end of the season. Leo Martinez, the outstanding young pitcher, improved his defense, also improved his hold rating, which was good to see. He's now kind of an average defensive pitcher and a little bit better at holding on runners, so some progress there for a guy who's an important member of our rotation. Ryan Stone, we decided to put him on an infield defense program. He's more talented as a defensive outfielder, but we're just so loaded in the outfield that he was our first baseman against right-handed pitching last year. That's the role we see for him again this year. And he did improve a bit, certainly not a dynamic first baseman as far as his ratings, but with the 45 range and error and his 6'3" height, he can certainly handle the position capably for us. And then Mike Girard, the young catcher, even though he's already an outstanding defensive player, we put him through the defensive program. His arm has been his weakest trait. That improved, and his catcher ability and framing also improved. Girard looks like he can be the next generation of great defensive catchers for us, hopefully, when it is eventually time to move on from Drew Roma, which, like I said, probably in 2 to 3 seasons. Girard still has some work to do with his bat, but honestly, he's not incredibly far behind Mr. Boone in terms of his hitting ability. Going to start him out in the Northwest League in High A, even though he wasn't particularly impressive in rookie ball or A ball offensively last year. But he's 21 years old. It looks like he should be able to handle the Northwest League offensively, and could be another guy who's threatening to be a September call-up this year if things go decently with his bat. And I would think that if and when we decide to move on from Boone, it's possible that Girard will have a 1 to 2 year apprenticeship behind Mr. Romo, and then assuming that in his mid-30s, Romo's still going to want a good-sized contract when his deal with us is up, hoping that Girard's bat develops enough that he'll be a very good ultimate replacement for us for Romo in a few seasons. And last but not least, before we finish off this episode and start moving through the regular season, take a look at the preseason predictions. Our Rockies have had the best record in baseball each of the last 2 years, made it to the World Series each of the last 2 years, and won the first World Series in franchise history last season. So high expectations as we try to guide them to a 7th straight playoff appearance. Over in the American League, the Boston Red Sox expected to be the only 90-win team, fueled in part by their new first baseman, the traitorous Aaron Judge, who put up 50 homers and 113 ribbies in the simulation for this upcoming season. Taking a look at the National League, high expectations once again for our Rockies, expected to be the only 102-win team in baseball and expected to run away with the division by 22 over the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers, with their crazy payroll, expected to be a 4th-place team. We'll see whether or not that really materializes. The only other team projected to win 90 games in the National League is the Washington Nationals. And we are expected to have some absolutely incredible seasons from our players. The youngster Ted Miller, 41 homers and 107 ribbies, playing all 162 games as a designated hitter, presumably in the simulation. Would have to think that he would be a very strong Rookie of the Year candidate if he puts up those numbers. Gus Nieves, if this season comes to pass with 48 homers and 122 ribbies, looks like he conceivably could lead the National League in both homers and ribbies for a fourth time in his 5 major league seasons if he really produces at that level. And then Kevin Roberts Jr., after that great postseason a year ago and big improvement in the development lab as far as his home run power this offseason, poised to have a monster year as well, tying for the league lead in homers with Nieves with 48, hitting close to 300 and stealing 17 bases despite the additional chance of injury that unfortunate trip to the development lab had on his legs. Our top 2 starters also expected to have monster years. Noah Schultz expected to be a rare 21st century 20-game winner with an ERA of just over 3 and 233 strikeouts. And Leo Martinez, hopefully off of that strength and conditioning program, expected to start 32 times for us, 17 and 7 with a 371 ERA in the simulation. So I can't imagine that we're really going to end up with 3 guys with 40-plus home runs and 100-plus ribbies, but would certainly be excited if these 3 guys, Roberts Jr., Nieves, and Miller, remain healthy and have big seasons, and would love it if our top 2 starters really both perform like aces. And we'll find out whether or not those things really happen this season over the next several episodes. And we'll be hearing play ball on the 2032 season next time around. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.